Hey everyone, it's Tim at Falconet. I'm back with some more Road to 1K. Today's episode is going to be this match on Rhythmical Bustle. It's a standard match, tier 3 against IRC Noob Bike, and it'll be an Andy versus Rachel match. So before I get into the replay, I'm going to go over the map itself a little bit. It's a bit of a smaller map, so well, honestly, like this feels like it'd be like a perfect max type map if this were tier 2, which honestly that leads me to think out of tier 3, that makes me think it's a little bit too small for Drake, and because like you have the airport in the corner here, which means that if you prioritize it pretty early on, you can prioritize the airport pretty early on, and it'll matter a bit. It's also a map in which there's like a good amount of play that you can do around artillery and stuff. So honestly, this feels like it's probably a Jake map if this were tier 4, but it's not. So we gotta choose between Andy or like Kindle maybe. Kindle's probably. The thing about Kindle though on this map is like it's really small and it's really sparse. So Kindle's power actually isn't going to get as much as you might think out of it. There's also not that much terrain on this map, so it's not really a lash map, which is why I'm thinking Andy on this one. Let's take a look at the map analysis. Just to confirm, yeah, Andy's at 54, Kindle is up at 62. So still pretty. So as usual, Kindle is like almost 10% higher than everyone else. It's a wonder why Kindle is still in freaking tier 2. Well, actually, here's the reason. The reason why Kindle's in tier 3 and not tier 2 is because Kindle would get absolutely just demolished in tier 2. But she's in this weird spot where like she's at least a significant head above everyone else in tier 3. Rachel's at 54, Andy's at 54. Jess is down at 21. Oof. That goes to show how important the copters are in this match, I believe. Infantry as well to an extent, but definitely the copters. Where's Jake at? I'll bet he's around 44 because people sometimes take him to higher tiers. And then, well, actually, I'm gonna double check if we'll create game because it's mid tier, right? Oh, yeah, Kindle's even banned on tier 3, so it's gonna be basically Andy or Rachel on this map. Andy is good for the superpower. Rachel is also good for the superpower. The thing about Rachel's superpower is that you can play around it a bit easier in just a standard Global League match, whereas you can't really play around it as much in live. That's why Rachel's pretty interesting to fight in live, because she can just blitz you and then you don't have enough time in the move planner to play around her covering fire. And your opponent technically doesn't have enough time to plan it either, but I feel like having less time for move planner is definitely it definitely benefits Rachel. I don't think we actually managed to get to our superpowers in this match, actually, even. But Andy is also pretty good. Like, Rachel's superpower, especially on like a smaller map like this, is going to be targeting down like a significant portion of your units or of your opponent's units. So it's going to be doing significant damage, even more so than like you might see in a larger map, where your units might be a bit more spread out, so they'll take a little bit less damage. Because there's artillery in this map, and that promotes a bunch like artillery blocks in these choke point areas, like around here, around this mountain, or around this little crossing area. because of that, that means that that also is pretty good with Rachel because it allows her to just pop her superpower and then she can just fire like a billion missiles in there. Basically, Rachel likes smaller maps a good deal because what she can do is she can, even despite the fact that she doesn't really have a day-to-day, the reason why she likes it is because when she pops her superpower, it just does a ton of damage because your opponent's units are just going to be packed into a nice little spot. Andy is also pretty good on this map just because that extra +1 move on all his units. Because it's a smaller map, that's going to end up being... Well, I feel like almost like the movement boost is better on smaller maps. Even though it's pretty good on larger maps too because it allows you to reinforce and stuff, but I feel like it makes all the more difference on smaller maps because that way you're pressuring out your opponents a little bit easier and stuff like that. So I feel like both Andy and Rachel are good on this map. And well, the other thing that you need to make sure that you're doing is going for the airport because there's going to be a lot of artillery condensed in these areas around these choke points, so you're going to need air units to dart around this area to take it over. The other thing that makes this really important to be around in is like you have these comm towers here. And the fun thing is you can just send a artillery into range of this from really either of your bases in like one turn. Well, not from your weak side, but from your strong side definitely. You can send an artillery there to make sure that your opponent gets off of there if you need to get them off of there. To be fair though, you have the pipe seam here, so you kind of sort of need, if you don't have enough vehicles heading out this way, you definitely need the artillery in this area to cover your infantry as they cross to try and get the comm tower here. Obviously, strong side to get this one, strong side for player 2 to get out this one. So, do we have first turn advantage? Yeah, we have a slight first turn advantage, but I don't think it's really significant. But yeah, this area around the comm towers especially is very interesting. And then you have the airport sort of locked behind this pipe seam, and obviously you're just gonna have to send an infantry around the long play to get to it pretty easily. You could blast it open with an artillery, but like the map's so small that I feel like you can't really afford to waste your resources on an artillery that's going to be in the back lines back here. You gotta sort of send it forward, especially because it's like just the one pipe seam. And then obviously you can blast this open with like a bomber eventually, or just with battle coppers they can wrap around. Well, can they? No, they can't really wrap around. So a bomber could just blast this open. Bomber plus like an infantry hit maybe could blast this open in like one turn, and then you can go straight that way. So that's for eventually once you get enough income for that. Or at least you save up enough, because in this map is like, it's got 40k total, so that's 20 per, is that 40 or 42? Well, it doesn't matter, it's 21k per turn. So you're gonna need to save up a little bit of money if you want to be able to afford a bomber, or like a Neotic or something. So, but honestly, like, the delay for the battlecopters isn't even that long. You're just wasting maybe a couple of tiles heading north, but you sort of want to be heading towards the center anyway with them, so I feel like it's not that big of a deal. That's another reason why, well, I mean, Flash isn't good on this map because there aren't that many, there isn't that much terrain next to the cities, it's all pretty open. So, I think that's basically everything I wanted to cover before I got into the replays, so let's get started with that. Alright, starting up here, we're just doing infantry moves towards the bases and such. I started out with pretty easily. You have a little bit of a capture chain in the center here, but actually this is more of a split map, so there aren't actually that many capture chains. There's a couple, like one there. That's really it. And in the center, there's obviously it's very sort of spread out. So you're gonna have to. It's one of those maps in which you have to commit your infantry to going in one direction or another, sort of. Like obviously you can split it a little bit like this and then decide later, which is always a good general strategy, especially if you're on the front lines, because that flexibility allows you to choose whether you're going for something that's like your opponent can attack into or not. He's already going for an artillery here pretty early on, so like I said, lots of artillery in this area. Very important early on, honestly. So I matched with my own artillery. Because I can just sort of do the same thing here, actually. So I can blast him away from the comm tower with the artillery once I get it into range. All I need to do is like sack maybe an infantry or so, which is what I'm going to do here. Of course, he's going to get some good shots off of his own artillery, but I think it might be worth like two infantry to deny your opponent the comm tower. Was my thinking here. Especially because if you put the artillery like in this forest here, his artillery can't actually fire into it. So that was my thought process for that. I'll make sure that I'll just deny him the comm tower. That'll give me a decent firepower advantage over my opponent. Of course, it's only 10%, so it's not going to be like that big of a deal, but it'll allow me to, if I want to pop hyper repair, that'll help a little bit. Of course, I'm playing against like Rachel, so because she has Lucky Last, it actually matters a little bit less whether we're at like 10 or 25% firepower, but it means that she needs to do a higher luck roll in order to go anywhere with that. Because if we want to pop our powers for a turn in which we can just sort of city break, we can do that. Moving in pretty aggressively here. He could interrupt this cap, and I think it would be a pretty good move too as well. Because he's got 3 infantry in position even. So he could definitely take out my infantry there, even without the 20% firepower. It's just a matter of how much does he want to invest in this area. Because I've already got a tank chain going on in this area. My opponent is actually a little bit ahead in income as of right now. Yeah, but that might turn around in a second here. He actually didn't go for that. I feel like that might have been a good move for him, just to deny me income, because now I'm a little bit ahead in income myself. So I pivot the tank actually down here to get away from his tanks coming from his weak side, because I've already sort of secured everything here, so I can... Well, I don't know, I feel like that might have not been the best idea, because what you can do here is attack with the tank from like here, maybe? Yeah, then kill with the infantry, cap with this infantry, and then guard with that infantry. So I feel like shifting downwards here isn't necessarily the best thing, but he's also sort of splitting his forces up, and I sort of want to make it so that he can't just ride around this way with his tanks. I think that's my thought process. Okay, he blasted that open with his artillery, I believe. Yeah, he had to. So he moved in with the tank here. He's kind of being a bit aggressive there, though. He's attacking the artillery like that, and it's only dropping it down to like 4 health. I'm going to be able to take... Yeah, see what I mean here in this area with that. It's not doing that good of a job of guarding that cap, though. You might have wanted to put this in this front here to sort of shield the cap from my infantry. But he does have 2 tanks in this area, and they're chained up pretty densely, so I'm basically forced out of here with my tank. But I'm able to just move in my infantry there. Oh, I actually got the luck roll there to take him out. So I get that. I get that off with the tank actually. So that sort of turns things around in this area. Nope. Not what I meant to do. Because I can move in with my other tanks like here. And that's, I believe that's a chain. Well, actually, I don't even need to go there. I can go to the forest and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a chain. Then I basically take out his tank there for more or less for free. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna leave my artillery there, I believe, because he can move in with his tank to finish it off, but it just died. So there's no real point to him blitzing like that. And yeah, he's in the forest, so I can chain there. I got the airport here. My opponent's a little bit behind on their airport, so we're going to be like, it's still going to be 3 or so turns until they can get it. My opponent's actually going like that with a tank. Interesting. And this is a pretty good position for them as well, because they can, this tank actually is in, like, he should have gone into the forest with this guy, because then he'd be able to chain to the city. But it's still a pretty good position because he's guarding his tank there with his infantry. He's got artillery here as well. So he can sort of guard that cap relatively easily here. So we'll see what I do in response. I think exactly what I did. Because I'm not going to be able to hit this artillery. So if I move in here, I'm going to take some damage in response. I interrupt with the artillery because it's out of the way there. Take out the infantry there with that actually. Yeah, there's enough infantry here where continuing the cap doesn't really necessarily make sense because you can just interrupt it. That's a pretty aggressive move with my infantry right there actually. But I think the reason I'm doing it is to divert his infantry from going to recap this a little bit. Yeah, especially by putting the tank there. Even like if he can attack into there with his infantry, it'll take some damage as well. So there's that. I have a couple of things in the area, but honestly, him having like he'll be able to start pushing me out of there pretty easily. I'm overextending maybe a little bit in this area. But there is that, but he can. This tank is definitely safer this turn because he doesn't have 2 tanks in range. Well, actually, he doesn't have the firepower. Even if he had 2 tanks in range, to guarantee that. So it'd be a roll anyways. Well, actually, no, he has infantry in the area, so he could do tank plus infantry. Then that could probably, if he got a decent buck roll with the infantry, that would be fine. So he takes out that exposed infantry there. Pivots to the city there with that tank. Who did I totally take out? Oh, he took out the 6 health tank with the artillery. Because I moved in against the tank there. That's decent. He pops a lucky last. Oh, that's fine. Okay. I think he got a good damage off there. Yeah. He just straight up one shot with the tank there. Let's see what the roll is. For that. 77 to 116. So more likely than not, this doesn't kill. But that's, I respect the lucky last there. Gets a decent power off. And then just moves in with the infantry though for the luck rolls. Doesn't really get from here, unfortunately for him, but it ends up being okay. And it looks like he's going to be able to grab that cap. At least next turn. Plus he's doing pretty well in the corner up here with the tanks as well. So I'll move in like that with the tank. That's a pretty high damage, I'd say, from the tank actually there. 5 damage. Okay, but I do get enough damage off here that I'm able to actually just pop my superpower and then stinks back to 4. And this guy's actually back to 8 health, which is kind of ridiculous. So this is where Andy's superpower just gets ridiculous. Is like I'm able to finish off a tank there with the medium. I'm actually able to stop him from getting the cap now there, which must have been super infuriating for my opponent. Kill there. Pivot back with this guy to get him back to behind the front lines, out of range of this artillery as well. I have the movement now to get onto the mountain here, so that plus the extra firepower there allows me to do some pretty insane stuff over here as well. Take out some infantry there. Yeah. Oh, that one I didn't get the walk around. I thought that was too much. And then I just build units there. Got my aircraft incoming as well. He builds which forced him to build this anti-air. He's got 2 artillery, which he can sort of deal with my medium tank with a little bit, but he's gonna have to be careful with them. And he doesn't really have the income to be able to build a medium tank of his own, which is gonna which will suck for him. Like that's something that you can do on decently low income maps like this one, is you can start spamming out battlecopters to force your opponent to build anti-air instead of being able to afford stuff to take out your like medium tank or neo tank. That's sort of what you want to do when you're ahead in income, is build something that's like a tech up to like a big unit, like a medium tank or even a neo tank maybe, and then just start spamming battlecopters so your opponent has to deal with to keep on building anti-air to deal with those. And then we're diluting their vehicle firepower and we're not able to afford anything to deal with your bigger units. So he moves in here with a decent counterattack push here. And he's able to do that pretty easily because he doesn't really have, I don't really have anything to move in against his tank block in this area, like in position. What's funny is like I sort of shifted the battle between this is more of my strong side and then this is my weak side up here, because I've just been diverting my units from here down to here, so I've been pushing them down here. Oh, that didn't actually kill. Yeah, so my opponent's already down 2 unit count. And there's that income gap of like 40k, so this value gap's gonna keep on widening, even if we take like no engagements, which I'm gonna take engagements, obviously. Oh no, I did it again. That's so rude. He's down to, this happened twice this match, but so unfortunate actually. He got denied again. Oh, that's awful. That's so awful. Ooh. Of course, he's down to like 2 charge there, so he can just join cap maybe even. But I've got enough stuff in this area that I can keep on pushing if I want to there. Got medium tank for the north now as well. It takes out the tank, obviously. And I'm really diverting a lot of resources into interrupting this cap, but I think it's sort of paying off because I have enough money, enough of an income and a unit count lead that I can actually afford these bosses. And he's pivoting up here with the artillery because he needs to be able to zone my medium tank out somehow. He's got a medium tank of his own finally. But he actually pivots away from there because he's not going to get the comm tower. Because he's making this area pretty hard for me to move in with the medium tank, I'm just getting it up. So now I've I pivoted up my strong side to actually being in this area because I've got the medium tanks moving in here. He's not going to really have much in this area to ever really deal with it. Especially now that he's sort of off of the... puts a little bit of capture pressure off of the comm tower. I don't really need to worry about it right now. At least for a turn or so. Except I think this is where my opponent resigns, right? Oh, yeah, I go for the rockets. And he just resigns. Honestly, he might have wanted to resign after I popped my super because... Well, to be fair, I respect the Lucky Last proc, but on a map like this, he really should have waited for Recovering Fire because he didn't really get all that much out of Lucky Last. Sure, he took out like an artillery from below, but that was a bit of a gamble. That's sort of a game in tier 3 actually, is you want to is like most of the COs in this tier, except for Kindle, except she's like tier 3 plus, but most of the COs in tier 3 are just walking superpowers, right? Some of them, like Lash, have a day-to-day. Rachel also has like that extra HP on her day-to-day, and then Drake's got that really niche naval defense, although that's pretty good on maps with like black boats on the HQ, is it adds a little bit of insurance on your HQ so that you're not really gonna be losing that way. But yeah, I feel like on a map like this, a small map like this, you definitely want to wait for your superpower, especially when it's really cheap, like Covering Fire is, or even that's why I went for the hyper upgrade after my opponent popped for Lucky Last, because like they took a swing and it didn't really do much. Now to be fair, we can go back to this. Where is it? To be fair, I sort of get where she's coming from with this, though. Because... let's wait for her to pop it. So she pops it, right? And then these are the engagements she takes. She takes an engagement with the tank onto the artillery, which is pretty good. It manages to one-shot here. She goes with the infantry into the artillery here, which... there was a chance to one-shot it, so she could have killed it if she got lucky. And then she did the same thing against a tank here on the road, which I think that was even more likely to one-shot there. And she got the good luck. Of course, it's luck damage, right? So putting everything onto that isn't necessarily the best move. And then after that... But it would have actually... managing to take out these two units would have turned the tide a lot. Especially when you're like playing against Andy, that's one of the things that you definitely want to do, is make sure that you can take out his units so that he can't just pop his superpower and win that way. If he had taken out these two units, you would have had control of the southern area here entirely, and I wouldn't have had much that I could have done about it actually. So I think it was a interesting gamble that didn't pay off, but it could have paid off relatively easily. In the north here, does he go for the tank? He should go for the tank, right? With his tanks. No. That's a mistake, I think. Because he has the luck damage here, what he should have done was attack with the tank from Derek, then attack with this tank. Odds are that probably would have taken out this tank. Then he could have moved in with the infantry here. He could either start running the cap here, or even just attack with the infantry. Yeah, I think the odds are, because I had enough infantry in this area, that I don't think it would have really mattered. Because I'm pretty sure he would have been able to kick me off of there, and then I would have been able to just get a shot off with this tank. But the important thing is, like, he wants to destroy as many of my units as he can before he gets his superpower. So I think that he was really aggressive in the south here, and then he decided for whatever reason to not be really aggressive in the north, when he could have definitely just taken out this tank, maybe even taken out this guy. Because let's say this guy from the city into this infantry. It doesn't actually kill, but if you get like a decent enough luck roll off, you're not even taking damage here, right? So I feel like you at least go for it. You have the luck damage to move in against this guy anyways, so, and that's what he did as well. So moving away from that. Well, actually, he didn't even kill. That's weird. But what he should have done was pivoted up with this guy, because I think he should have had. Actually, no, he didn't. That is really unlucky, actually. Because luck damage is decreased a good amount with defense. But this should have definitely done like 5. Probably, and then the next one kills. But with 6, it's still relatively likely that he kills there. Yeah, I feel like my opponent just got really, really unlucky on her push here. But that's the issue with playing a luck seal, is sometimes you miss a little bit. I still feel like he should have gone for the attack there. Although, to be fair, I can see now looking at it why he wouldn't. But he does have the infantry in the area, so what he could have done was like, that's 42. So let's assume he got really unlucky with both of his tank hits, right? So that's 42 plus 39. That's a minimum. At minimum, that takes him down to 2 health. And then he's got the infantry in the area. So he could attack with this guy from the north, then attack with this guy from the south. Then he has the infantry. Then he could still, as a Hail Mary, get a shot off to try and finish off the tank. And considering that he'd get luck damage from both of these as well, I feel like the odds for taking this guy out would have been really, really high. The only reason it didn't really work out in this south here is because he attacked with one of his units was really, really weak, and because luck damage decreases a lot with the fuller health, that's why he wasn't able to take out my tank there. But I feel like he definitely should have gone all in, at least on this tank. And it is really unfortunate that he didn't actually secure these kills. And that's actually where denying my opponent this comm tower ended up coming in handy a lot. Because even with the 1 comm tower, I feel like this tank would be dead. This artillery probably wouldn't be dead. But he definitely would have gone for this. This infantry would be dead as well, for sure. So it was a little bit of bad luck. I'd say my victory was chalked up to a little bit of bad luck on the part of my opponent, and then also just early game denying this super early on. And that's sort of because my opponent pushed artillery from this area really early. That did allow him to push into this area pretty easily with like artillery and stuff. But because he didn't have an answer for my medium tank, he wasn't able to secure this comm tower ever, and that ended up hurting him a lot. So, yeah. Anyways, that's it for today's episode. Let's see. I need to go all the way back now. Don't mind that. Let's see here. Okay. yeah, next match is going to be High Funds Tier 3 versus Dip. So that's Money Jungle. It's a long map. And that's going to be an interesting High Funds. It's going to be Rachel versus Sasha. Sasha's really scary on High Funds, honestly. But that'll be an interesting match, so do stay tuned in for that one. If you enjoy, go ahead and like and subscribe and all that other nonsense, and I will see you guys in the next one. See you guys later.